The Adventures of Prince Camaralzaman. Princess Badoura and the some 20 days' sail from the coast of Persia lies the Isle of the Children of Khaledan. The island is divided into several provinces, in each of which are large, flourishing towns, and the whole forms an important kingdom. It was governed in former days by a king named Schahzaman, who, with good right, considered himself one of the most peaceful, prosperous, and fortunate monarchs on the earth. In fact, he had but one grievance, which was that none of his 4 wives had given him an heir. This distressed him so greatly that one day he confided his grief to the Grand Vizier, who, being a wise counselor, said, "Such matters are indeed beyond human aid. Allah alone can grant your desire, and I should advise you, sire, to send large gifts to those holy men who spend their lives in prayer, and to beg for their intercessions. Who knows whether their petitions may not be answered?" The king took his vizier's advice, and the result of so many prayers for an heir to the throne was that a son was born to him the following year. Schahzaman sent noble gifts as thank offerings to all the mosques and religious houses, and great rejoicings were celebrated in honor of the birth of the little prince, who was so beautiful that he was named Camaralzaman, or Moon of the Century. Prince Camaralzaman was brought up with extreme care by an excellent governor and all the cleverest teachers, and he did such credit to them that when he was grown up, a more charming and accomplished young man was not to be found. Whilst he was still a youth, the king, his father, who loved him dearly, had some thoughts of abdicating in his favor. As usual, he talked over his plans with his Grand Vizier, who, though he did not approve the idea, would not state all his objections. "Sire," he replied, "the prince is still very young for the cares of state. Your Majesty fears his growing idle and careless, and doubtless you are right. But how would it be if he were first to marry? This would attach him to his home, and your Majesty might give him a share in your councils, so that he might gradually learn how to wear a crown, which you can give up to him whenever you find him capable of wearing it." The vizier's advice once more struck the king as being good, and he sent for his son, who lost no time in obeying the summons and standing respectfully with downcast eyes before the king asked for his commands. "I have sent for you," said the king, "to say that I wish you to marry. What do you think about it?" The prince was so much overcome by these words that he remained silent for some time. At length he said, "Sire, I beg you to pardon me if I am unable to reply as you might wish. I certainly did not expect such a proposal, as I am still so young, and I confess that the idea of marrying is very distasteful to me. Possibly I may not always be in this mind, but I certainly feel that it will require some time to induce me to take the step which your Majesty desires." This answer greatly distressed the king, who was sincerely grieved by his objection to marriage. However, he would not have recourse to extreme measures, so he said, "I do not wish to force you. I will give you time to reflect, but remember that such a step is necessary for a prince such as you, who will someday be called to rule over a great kingdom." From this time, Prince Camaralzaman was admitted to the royal council, and the king showed him every mark of favor. At the end of a year, the king took his son aside and said, "Well, my son, have you changed your mind on the subject of marriage, or do you still refuse to obey my wish?" The prince was less surprised, but no less firm than on the former occasion, and begged his father not to press the subject, adding that it was quite useless to urge him any longer. This answer much distressed the king, who again confided his trouble to his vizier. "I have followed your advice," he said, "but Camaralzaman declines to marry and is more obstinate than ever." "Sire," replied the vizier, "much is gained by patience, and your Majesty might regret any violence. Why not wait another year and then inform the prince in the midst of the assembled council that the good of the state demands his marriage? He cannot possibly refuse again before so distinguished an assemblage, and in our immediate presence. The Sultan ardently desired to see his son married at once, but he yielded to the vizier's arguments and decided to wait. He then visited the prince's mother and, after telling her of his disappointment and of the further respite he had given his son, he added, "I know that Camaralzaman confides more in you than he does in me. Pray speak very seriously to him on this subject and make him realize that he will most seriously displease me if he remains obstinate, and that he will certainly regret the measures I shall be obliged to take to enforce my will." So the first time the Sultana Fatima saw her son, she told him she had heard of his refusal to marry, adding how distressed she felt that he should have vexed his father so much. She asked what reasons he could have for his objections to obey. "Madam," replied the prince, "I make no doubt that there are as many good, virtuous, sweet, and amiable women as there are others very much the reverse. Would that all were like you? But what revolts me is the idea of marrying a woman without knowing anything at all about her. My father will ask the hand of the daughter of some neighboring sovereign, who will give his consent to our union. Be she fair or frightful, clever or stupid, good or bad, I must marry her and am left no choice in the matter. How am I to know that she will not be proud, passionate, contemptuous, and recklessly extravagant, or that her disposition will in any way suit mine?" "But, my son," urged Fatima, "you surely do not wish to be the last of a race which has reigned so long and so gloriously over this kingdom." "Madam," said the prince, "I have no wish to survive the king, my father, but should I do so, I will try to reign in such a manner as may be considered worthy of my predecessors." These and similar conversations proved to the Sultan how useless it was to argue with his son, and the year elapsed without bringing any change in the prince's ideas. At length a day came when the Sultan summoned him before the council, and there informed him that not only his own wishes, but the good of the empire demanded his marriage, and desired him to give his answer before the assembled ministers. At this, Camaralzaman grew so angry and spoke with so much heat that the king, naturally irritated at being opposed by his son in full council, ordered the prince to be arrested and locked up in an old tower, where he had nothing but a very little furniture, a few books, and a single slave to wait on him. Camaralzaman, pleased to be free to enjoy his books, showed himself very indifferent to his sentence. When night came, he washed himself, performed his devotions, and, having read some pages of the Koran, lay down on a couch, without putting out the light near him, and was soon asleep. Now there was a deep well in the tower in which Prince Camaralzaman was imprisoned, and this well was a favorite resort of the fairy Maimoun, daughter of Damriat, chief of a legion of genii. Towards midnight, Maimoun floated lightly up from the well, intending, according to her usual habit, to roam about the upper world as curiosity or accident might prompt. The light in the prince's room surprised her, and without disturbing the slave who slept across the threshold, she entered the room, and approaching the bed was still more astonished to find it occupied. The prince lay with his face half hidden by the coverlet. Maimoun lifted it a little and beheld the most beautiful youth she had ever seen. What a marvel of beauty he must be when his eyes are open, she thought. What can he have done to deserve to be treated like this? Shiat could not weary gazing Camaralzaman, but at length, having softly kissed his brow and each cheek, she replaced the coverlet and resumed her flight through the air. As she entered the middle region, she heard the sound of great wings coming towards her, and shortly met one of the race of bad genii.